You can't get the whole book from our readings because we skip around. You have to get the book. But we're on page 320. Abolitionism. This is abolitionism and women's rights were twined causes. As Margaret Fuller had said years before, it was the champion of the enslaved Africans who made the warmest appeal on behalf of women, partly out of principle, but also because women, not men, were the leaders of abolitionism at the grassroots level. Fuller's own writings were laying the foundation for women's rights, as she proclaimed, "We would have every arbitrary barrier thrown down, we would have every path laid open to women as freely as to men." Men, she added scornfully, were too much under the slavery of habit to help with women's liberation. It's true that her friend Henry Thoreau did not fight for women's rights, but he did praise Fuller's foundational women's rights essay, and about that same time he went to a Quaker church in New York to hear Lucretia Mott speak on, quote, slavery and the degradation of women, unquote. Quote, it was a great good speech, unquote, he had told Helen. Quote, Transcendentalism in its mildest form, unquote, he liked the Quakers' plain style ways. 5 years later, Mott had helped organize the 1848 Seneca Falls Convention, the first public meeting in the United States in support of women's rights. In 1850, Elizabeth Oakes Smith, she related to me? I don't know. Ran a 10-part series on women's rights in the New York Tribune, then set off to become the first woman to lecture on the Lyceum Circuit. As Thoreau noted late in 1851 when she spoke in Concord, quote, the most important fact about the lecture was that a woman said it, unquote, for women were forbidden from public speaking. Smith long remembered how Thoreau, quote, that gentle Arcadian of the 19th century, gave me his hand gravely and said with solemn emphasis, quote, you have spoken, quote, which her host, Bronson Alcott, translated to her as, quote, you have brought an oracle, unquote. Thoreau was less chivalrous in his journal when he complained that, quote, she was a woman in the too common sense after all, unquote. The pocket in which he'd carried her lecture for her reeked of perfume, and it annoyed him that, quote, the championess of women's rights still ask you to be a ladies' man, unquote. Mary Moody Emerson. This is why we're reading this section. We wanted to hear the name Mary Moody Emerson, though did not, quote, the wittiest and most vivacious woman that I know. This is according to Thoreau. She is the wittiest and the most vivacious woman that I know. Thoreau wrote in November 1851, the least frivolous. She's not frivolous, see?
It's like frivolity with it.
She's the real founder of Transcendentalism. She's Emerson's aunt. You see, the whole thing came from women. Like all good things come from just women, if you're a woman. And the surest to provide you to good conversation. The tough, chewy, intellectual kind he valued above all else. Mary enjoyed his company, and Henry admired her genius. She confirmed his opinion by holding that women were, quote, frivolous almost without exception, unquote, and that wherever she went, it was the men with whom she most often found society, for they were more likely to have opinions of their own. Quote, be still, unquote, Mary Schlossstein a young woman shushed. You ever heard the word shushed? Could you tell the kids to shush up? Be still, Mary shushed one young woman. I want to hear the men talk. In short, Thoreau respected women who threw down the barriers and set out on their own paths, women who could meet on, quote, the ascending path. He wrote, women like Fuller, who thought the gender was fluid, and that women too could be masculine, but frivolous women who merely followed the dictates of fashion or the commands of convention earned Thoreau's instant scorn and undying contempt. He preferred the company of women who took on leadership roles like his own mother and sisters, all bold, smart, well-read, and outspoken. Wow. We read about women. He liked his mother, his sisters, remember Sophia? And Mary Moody Emerson. She's featured here as the wittiest, most vivacious woman that I know. We read about Elizabeth Smith.
But she doesn't have to go really be masculine necessarily. Other words, we have men all.
We read, so the abolitionism and women's rights were twined causes. They were twined. This is just 320 to 321. We read about the founder of Transcendentalism.